Hey guys, Matthew here. So today I'll bring you the follow-up video of the video I made yesterday, which was the full complete build. Today is going to be basically how to play it, because it is a different playstyle, and obviously depending, especially on which variant you go, reverse chill or not, like the optimal speed version or the more like chill farming constantly version, it can be pretty different. So this is essentially what the build would look like if it was not running reverse chill. The only difference is obviously you see that I have no ring slots. This would be basically normal rings with a lot of resistances. This is where I would cap out my entire resistance pool, would be my rings and of course my gloves. Now, one thing to note is that the Ichimonji in the non-reverse chill version would probably be changed for an allure claw. So let me show you guys what that is real quick for the people who wouldn't know. Allure claw. So this is probably the weapon of choice because it gives you 15% movement speed, while this only adds up to about 10% or so. And you don't need the mana in this version of the build at all. So Ichimonji is overkill and is not required whatsoever. Another thing that I would change is, since you get a lot of resistance from your rings, one good thing to get on your gloves would be a pair of +1 socketed gems, blight gloves. So I believe these are called breath stealers. Yep. And the reason you get those is because you can anoint something on them, right? So what I would anoint would be this node over here, Diamond Skin, which does gives you 3% movement speed and 12 all resistances, which means the rings you get can be even worse, which means even cheaper rings, because the rings can be fairly expensive depending on how much resistance you actually need on them, depending on the resistances on your Queen of the Forest and whatnot. So another thing is the shield. Obviously, we wouldn't be needing physical damage from hits taken as cold, so we could get any Peripateia that has good movement speed, let's say 18% and above. And of course, you could go look for some good corruptions. That could be pretty much anything. Some resistances, some damage, some level of socket gems, whatever it is, really. So I'll show you guys basically what it looks like. I haven't ran lab today. I also don't have lab compass, so I'm just going to open up Merciless Lab. Because it's less prone to mistakes, and obviously because it's shorter. And I'll show you guys how it works. So first things first, you always start into this position. And one thing that's pretty nice to note is that you can actually pre-smoke mine the location where you want to go during the loading screen. So as soon as you're there, the smoke mine is already going to be there, so you can blow it up and start your run. Now, what I would advise to do is in very short zones. So this is pretty much considered not that much of a short zone necessarily, but it is fairly short. You could consider not flask pianoing your entire set of flasks and only using the Quicksilver flask, because that doesn't seem to be an issue in Merc Lab, because the rooms are fairly short, so you can pretty much afford to piano every single flask every single time. But as you get into especially Uber Lab, when the zones are way longer on average, sometimes you have to really consider, should I use my flask here? Should I not use my flask here? Is it a good thing? Is it not a good thing to use my flask here? Come on, do it. So that's something for you to decide. Also, what I just showed you guys is that you can actually use Charge Dash to do some pretty cool things in lab, such as like skipping. Instead of going through all these entire spikes, you can get set up and actually use your Charge Dash to maneuver between different things, which is pretty cool. But it doesn't tend to be a very good use of time. So again, you can smoke mine at the entrance. So let me show you guys what I mean by that. You can totally smoke mine here, and as you can see, I'm already at the boss room without having to walk the entire way. So once you get to the boss, one thing that you have to do is to change your weapon. That is done by pressing X. Another thing you'll have to do is chest your armor piece, because as you see, your armor piece reserves your aura, so haste and grace. So you can go with the Queen of the Forest. You can go with a Tabula. You can go with Skin of the Loyal. that is for you to decide. So that would be the second thing you need to do. Let's just kill him, and I'll show you guys how to position yourself basically in the next phase. Because obviously I was kind of explaining how it's done here. So you would change your chest piece back, and then you would go ahead and pop your ores back. There is one thing to note though. You could technically run the auras, haste, grace, and enlighten elsewhere in your setup, say in your boots for example, and then you would not need to chest swap because you could get a +1 socketed skin Queen of the Forest or a +2 AoE gem Skin of the Forest 6 linked, and that would make up for the damage that you lack, and you would no longer actually need to chest swap. So for convenience sake, chest swapping is not actually the greatest thing, obviously. So it's not like it's a necessity. You can actually completely omit chest swapping if you just set up a good chest piece instead. So it looks like we have a golden key in here. I haven't run lab at all today, so I have no idea what the layout is or anything. I'm also not going very fast because I'm trying to explain everything. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys what it would look like if you were to try to pre-trap the place. Oh well, I thought that was going to be in Ashman's Plaza. So let's do that again. So we know that basically the thing we have to know is that we come from this layout here. And this layout, the start of the zone is going to be this side. So you're facing this side, so you want to throw your smoke mine this side. Obviously, that comes from the fact that, you know, you run lab a few times, and after a few times in the same day, you kind of know, you know, which zone you're going to be thrown into after you load in it. So here, I don't actually know which zone, which side it's going to be. It's this side, cool. So the most strategic place that I found to be is this corner here when it comes to throwing your smoke mine. It tends to be a lot better than trying to throw it like here or something. This corner is like, it's always going to work, and you're always in range of it. So it's a fairly nice place to actually throw. So this is what it would look like otherwise. I would throw my 20 traps down. Then I would pop my 2 auras, Righteous Fire, and Phase Run. Now you see I have almost no life left, and sometimes there's going to be things trying to kill you. So one of the most important things to do is to very quickly change weapon, which is going to turn off all your auras, because your auras are all in your actual weapons. As you can see, I have Hatred and Arcane Surge, which gives me a good bit of damage here. And then I went with a setup of Herald of Ash with Blood Magic and Increased Duration. The reason why I use Increased Duration is just to make it so the moment I use my Herald of Ash, I'm always in low life mode. And the reason why that's important is because we run Pain Attunement, which gives you 30% more damage when you're on low life. So we don't have to worry about anything else. By running Increased Duration with Herald of Ash and Blood Magic, we are always on low life when we use Herald of Ash, which is very nice. Now the next thing you would do, obviously, like I said, you'd change your weapons back, you'd put your armor back on, you would turn on your auras again, and then in the next room you always want to pre-smoke mine, and then you're good to go. So that's essentially the playstyle, really. It's not too complicated. It is definitely different compared to, you know, a lot of other playstyles, but it's really all about, you know, your pre-smoke mine being actually good. So throwing your smoke mine in a good location. It's about keeping your flash charges up, and it's about obviously always having phase run. In this variation of the build, it's a very quick build. It's also a very safe build. So we're going to go ahead and reset this this lab, and I'll show you guys what it would look like if I was doing it a little bit more, you know, a little bit more seriously. So obviously this is the non-reverse chill version, and this is also, I think my resistances are nowhere near capped. Yeah, my resistances are super scuffed because I don't have any rings, but I'm supposed to. So pre-smoke mine, then I'm gonna go ahead and use all my flask, piano my flasks, and then obviously phase run, and then we're good to go. So the layout was around here. Put that. If you have a hard time clicking doors, there is one thing to note that you can actually charge dash through them. So for people who have a little bit of a harder time when it comes to clicking doors properly, that's one thing to note. So we go ahead and swap this. put the 20 flasks down, the traps down, sorry. We're going to go ahead and turn a Righteous Fire just before he becomes targetable, and swap this back, put this back on, and we're good to go. Oh, I keep putting it the wrong way, Lamau. So that's basically what the build looks like. This variation of the build, which is the non-reverse shield, caps out to be around, no, I didn't click it. Caps out to be around 600 or so movement speed with everything up, I believe, around 600. Let's see, yeah, around 600 movement speed. So it's not an extremely fast build, but it's also not a slow build by any stretch of the imagination. It's also pretty nice to run because you're pretty much never in danger. You have a lot of evasion. So again, pre-smoke mine. Then you're gonna go ahead and flask piano all your flasks and be on your way. One thing to note is whenever you're on your way to his arrow, always piano all your flasks. There's no reason not to, because once you get to his arrow, by the time he's up, you're going to get all your flash charges back because you're a Pathfinder. So put the traps down, turn all this stuff on, and there you go. That's what it looks like. Now, why am I coming in this corner, and why am I hitting phase run? Well, the reality is that his arrow doesn't see you. That's the reason why we do that. He has a target range that is fairly limited, and phase run makes it so you're less likely to be seen by his arrow. And if you're not seen, it's kind of hard to show the difference, but essentially the difference is that he's not going to charge at you or do any like attacks directly at you. And if he doesn't do an attack directly at you, then he goes right back down his hole when you kill him. Instead of actually, you having to fight him. So it saves you quite a few seconds, probably about 4 to 5 seconds every single fight. So that's why we go in the corner and we hit phase run right after we hit Righteous Fire. So you want to put your traps down. Let's say this was his arrow, like this little thing here. So you'd put your traps down, right? Then you'd run back. Let's say this is the little thing. You'd put your auras back on. And right before he gets targetable, you want to hit out Righteous Fire and then phase run. And then he can't target you. He's going to go right back down, put your auras back on, and you're good to run. So this is how you play the non-reverse shield variation. Now let's go over the reverse shield variation and also the little bit more advanced variation. So the reverse shield variation, the only thing that changes really is the fact that in one of your scepters, you will have a Insanity mod, which is crafted with an Essence of Insanity, which gives you triggers level 20 Spectral Spirits when equipped. The other change is obviously the Winter Weave Ring, the Heart-bound Loop, and the Oxium Belt. That is the only thing that changes in this variation of the build. And what happens now is that when I take damage, I get shield, and shield actually makes me faster. As you can see, I'm going pretty slow. I chill myself, now I'm going pretty fast. That is literally the only change. But as you can see, shield doesn't last for very long. It lasts for about 2.5 seconds or something. Something around the 2-second mark. So it doesn't last very long. So most of the layouts will require you to chill yourself multiple times. So what it comes down to is really experience of knowing this layout is really short. So I'm only going to, weapon swap one time, and I'll suffer through the last second of the layout or so without reverse chilling, because if I reverse chill, I'm going to need to pop a potion. If I need to pop a potion, then I might not have a potion for, the next zone. So it really comes down to trying to min-max how many times in any given layout you're going to reverse chill yourself. This is done by pressing X and X, twice. That's all it is. So you run XX. You don't need to macro this. You don't need to automize it or anything like that. You just need to press XX every time you see the reverse shield logo disappear. You press XX. You're chilled again. You're going fast. Everything's good. And yeah, obviously, if you're too ham about it and you're not being careful with your flash charges, you will kill yourself, like I just showed you a couple times. Now, the only difference here is that when you get to his arrow, it's played the same way. You're going to have a chest swap. But the difference is, that when you swap your weapon, you're also going to have to swap to your other good scepter, because this scepter is literally just a placeholder for the spectral spirits. So you do need to get the damage scepter back on, so you have 2 swaps instead of just 1. I'll show you guys real quickly what it looks like. So I would pre-smoke mine, I would weapon swap, pop a flask, weapon swap again, and now in this layout, I'd probably weapon swap 1 time. Then once I get around here, I'd probably weapon swap again. And then we're up to 0. Oh, it was this side. I'm gonna go ahead and throw a smoke mine. So swap. We're gonna put our scepter on, our chest piece on. Pre-swap. Put all this up. He dies. Change again. Pop a potion. Change this. Change this. Change it back. And you have to be really fast with your grace and haste to get them both at once. At least if you're running the agnostic keystone. And let me show you guys why that is. So let's say I had just fought Zero, right? I had just fought Zero, so I did all my trapping stuff. I put my ores back on. Put my phase run. Alright, so this is the state that I'm left in right after I'm done killing Zero. As you can see, I've got no mana, and I've got not a whole lot of health. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is swap my weapon, which is going to, you know, take off all the auras, and then pop a flask. Now the difference is, now I'm going to go back to full life and full mana. So when I put my chest piece back on, and then when I change the weapon, you're going to see what happens when I put this weapon on. The spectral spirits are going to appear. Now the problem with this is that when I go to swap my weapons to put back my grace and haste and to have my running setup, I'm going to take damage. I'm going to take damage from the spectral hits when I weapon swap here. So for example, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to take damage. And as you can see, what happened here is that when I weapon swapped, I took damage from my life pool, but what happens is with the agnostic keystone, which allow you to reverse shield yourself, the maximum energy shield is 0. That's really important, but while not on maximum life, you sacrifice 20% of your mana per second to recover that much life. So that means that after killing a Zero, I pop my flask, I'm in this situation. The moment I weapon swap, what's going to happen is I'm going to take damage from my life pool, and then it's going to start draining my mana pool to try to get my life pool back to maximum as fast as possible. So during this time, you have a very short window of time when you weapon swap to hit both your grace and hastes before the fact that you're missing life starts draining your mana. So you have to be really quick after the weapon swap to put on both your ores at once. And as you can see, it drains your mana down to 0 very, very quickly. So that's one thing to note. You have to be very fast after your weapon swap, after the Zero kill, to put on your ores back on. Now, another thing you realize, if you're paying attention, is after the weapon swap, I have no mana, even if I get to put on my haste and grace, which means in the next zone, I'm not going to have any mana for smoke mine, for charge dash, for phase run, for any of other skills, which is why I decided to personally run all of them on blood magic. So I have my phase run on blood magic, so it doesn't require any mana to get me going in the zone, and I also have my smoke mine on blood magic. So even if I change my weapon right after the phase and I have no mana coming into the zone, I can still smoke mine, I can still phase run, I can still do all this stuff. So I'm never at like non-maximum efficiency when it comes to speed. So that's one thing to note that you can do to fix a little bit of the mana issues. The mana issues that this build has. So again, pre-smoke mine. I'm gonna go ahead and oops, I forgot there's a golden key again. Gonna go ahead and weapon swap. Here in this layout, for example, let me give you guys an example of here. So we're going through this layout. It's not a short layout, but it's a pretty short layout actually. So there's actually two different routes. You can take the upper route and you can also take the lower route. The lower route would have been quicker in this instance, I believe. You would take the golden key. Now I'm no longer reverse chill. Is it really worth it to reverse shield myself? Yes. So I would probably go about it twice in this layout. So let's say I was to run this layout. I would come in, pre-smoke mine, reverse shield myself, run through, reverse shield again, pop a flask, and then I probably would not reverse shield a third time. So for the remaining little bit of the layout, I probably wouldn't reverse shield because that would cost me a flask charge that I may or may not be willing to waste, and in this instance, I'm not willing to waste it. So again, you get to the boss, you're gonna go ahead and put all your traps down, gonna go ahead and put all your stuff on, phase run, change your weapon, pop a flask, change your weapon again, put on this, change your weapon, put on Grace and Haste again, and you're good to go. So again, it's not the easiest playstyle. Obviously, there's a lot of buttons to click. But you are running at 30% more movement speed than anyone else, really, because reverse shield is a 30% movement speed buff. So that's basically it, really, for how to play the build. Now, a couple different min-maxing things you can do with the build to finish off the video. The reverse shield variation or the non-reverse shield variation. Both of them can take advantage of the Blight helmet if you're willing to swap a third piece when you get to Izaro for the Izaro fight. If you're willing to swap the helmet as well, you can actually remove these 2 nodes here and these 3 nodes here, which give you an extra 5 nodes on the tree, which allow you to, to invest them into more movement speed and so on. Which means, you can go ahead and get this movement speed node, 2% here, 2% here, 3% there. You could get, like, this node would give you 2%, this node would give you 2%. So, these 5 nodes would give you about 10% more movement speed if you're willing to swap the helmet. Because by anointing the helmet with expeditious munitions and unstable munitions, then you get all of the necessary increased trap trigger area of effect, but without actually needing to spend the points for the small nodes, which allows you to get more movement speed on the tree. Otherwise, that's really about it. As you get more levels, you get more Drool sockets. So one thing to note is that you can get the pure talent that gives you 7% movement speed. You need to get 3 hair triggers. Remember that from the video yesterday, 3 of those. And then obviously a Watcher's Eye, Unnatural Instinct, and some Transcendent Spirits. So you kind of have to drop the Conqueror's Potency unless you're willing to also swap like 1 hair trigger. But that becomes really min-maxy, and honestly it's not very viable, I would say. I've tried it personally, and sometimes it works, but sometimes you end up taking the wrong jewel off, and yeah, sometimes it's pretty pepega, so it can be a little bit rough to actually try to put in that 1 extra jewel to get a little bit extra movement speed during the running segment of the lab. So this jewel here, the flask effect, 8% gives you about 6% movement speed, so it's fairly minimal for how much work it is. But the helmet swap, I would say, is absolutely worth it, because Devotos doesn't give you anything when it comes to the killing process. So actually having this helmet is just fine, and obviously saving the nodes for more movement speed is great. So I think that's about it, honestly. Little pointers to note, TLDR. First things, make sure to pre-smoke mine every single time you enter a zone and try to predict which side the zone is going to be in. The zones stay on the same side, same orientation for the entirety of the day. So after running lab a few times, you'll pretty much know which side you want to smoke mine. So that's thing number 1. Second thing, try to min-max how many flash charges you actually use. So if you're in a really short layout and you're not going to Izaro, consider only using a Quicksilver flask, for example, charge, instead of using every single charge of all your flasks. It really depends also on how much evasion you have, though, because if you're not capped on the evasion, right, if you don't have your Experimenter's Jade Flask of Reflexes, which is what caps your evasion out to like 60,000 to get your Queen of the Forest movement speed up, If that's not capped, you're going to feel way slower. So let's see when the flask goes off. You'll see that I'm at only 27,000 evasion, which means I'm not movement speed capped for my Queen of the Forest, which I need 45,000 evasion to actually cap out. So that's one thing to note. Something that would help with that is some gloves with a lot of evasion on them. Like 1,000 evasion would go a long way. But yeah, so be real careful with your flash charges. Try not to piano your flasks too often. It's not like a delver or anything like that. Flash charges are essentially the difference between a good run and a messed up run. It all comes down to how good you are with using your flash charges. Obviously, reading the layouts and all that is also important, but flash charges is a decent part of that. And finally, remember to always hide from a zero when it comes to insta-phasing him. Put on all your traps, turn on your auras, put on Righteous Fire right before he becomes targetable, and then obviously phase run in the corner. Try to have nothing close to you so that when you do phase run, nothing sees you, which is obviously safer because you'll have basically no life and no mana, so you have to weapon swap and pop a flask before anything else. That's what you really want to do really quickly. Because if there's like essences or anything like that, or gargoyles, whatever it is really, that try to come at you and jump at you, they're going to be delayed if you're in phase run mode because nobody can target you, nobody can see you. So that's why we do the phase run trick. It also saves us quite a few seconds. So that's basically it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Before I go, I want to say a huge thank you to my patrons as always. Drew, Jared, KFish, Caleb, Corey, Dave, Robert, Casticus, Hunter, Mathias, Rakesh, Tim, and Mr. Coffee. You guys are all awesome, big dick supporters. Thank you guys so much for making this possible. I've been a little bit inconsistent with the streams, but quite honestly, that's just because I'm bored of the league and I'm not sure what else to stream. So maybe I'll have a look at some random games I can play, like some variety stuff until the next league. So for the people who are wondering where the stream is right now, it's gonna come back. There's nothing to worry about that. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you learned a little bit in this video. Hopefully this helps you out to not, pepega your runs. Because I know it's a different playstyle, and when you start off as trying to do this, you're going to die fairly often. It's going to happen. But once you have a little bit of practice, you'll see it's not that bad. So, best of luck to everybody, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.